Today's topic is about a little bit of the heaviness that's happening all around us. So I know that I've been hearing from lots of people and experiencing myself. The last 6 months of the first 6 months of 2020 have been something. Holy man, have they been something? So this is an opportunity to just think about how things have been going and what does this mean for you. Um, and I think that we're being called to come out of our autopilot. So whether it's coronavirus or the civil rights movements that's happening, who knows what the rest of 2020 is going to bring with us. I feel personally that we're being called to come out of autopilot. So my experience of being shelter in place and working from home and not having contact with everybody and life basically stopping was it shook me out of this autopilot that I had been living in. So just the autopilot of getting up and going to work and doing the things and just putting more and more and more on your plate and just doing things because out of obligation maybe, or just because that's what you've always done without really thinking about it. So when the world came to a stop, it was a moment of awfulness to begin with. But what it did is it really kind of shook the autopilot, I think, out of all of us. I think a lot of us were thinking, how come, you were commuting so much to work, and how are we spending our time, and where are we spending our money? So all these aspects, I think, that being at home and quarantine and shelter in place, that really shook us up. And now we are on the front end of a wave of a civil rights movement that's happening in the United States and also here in Canada, across the world, which is again shaking us up to get out of autopilot, to make us think about what we're doing, how we're acting in the world, how we're contributing, how we're not contributing, and just putting up a mirror in a way. I feel like the universe is holding up a mirror for us to pay attention to what's happening. So there's a couple of things I really encourage you to do, because I know it's really heavy. There's a lot of heaviness. There's a lot of stress happening, whether it's work stuff or kid stuff, or watching the news and social media and not knowing what to do and having really hard conversations with people. I know that there's lots of people who have had lots of conflict within families and friends with what's going on. And there's a couple of things I think that you can do to kind of reorient yourself. So I think that in this time, it is a perfect time to readjust and realign your life a little bit. So as humans, we don't do really well when we live out of alignment. So when we live outside of our values or live outside of what's important to us. So, as much as our body, physical body, is this magical harmony machine, so is how we do our life. And I think a lot of us have been living out of harmony, including myself. And whether that comes to not giving myself enough time for self-care, or spending too much money, or just over committing to a whole bunch of things that perhaps I shouldn't have done. So in this time, I really encourage you to take stock, to stop for a moment and to really think about your life. And maybe grab a journal or something like that. It's a great time to readjust goals and to think about what your life is like. Like, how are you spending your time? So we all get the same amount of time in a day. And I think we've gotten so used to the badge of honor of being busy. So busy has become this weird value between us. We ask people how you're doing. Oh my gosh, I'm so busy. Oh my gosh, I'm so busy. So now we're competing around who is busier and who's achieving more or not achieving more or doing the things. I really want you to think about how you're spending your time. I don't believe that we're meant to be scattering around like a whole bunch of busy people. I think that we want meaningful connections. We want meaningful conversations and relationships. And so I encourage you to, first thing is, ask yourself how you're spending your time. We all get the same amount of time. How are you spending it? Are you spending it wisely? Are you spending it in a way that actually gives back to you instead of you always giving out? So there needs to be some input, just not only output. The other thing I want to ask you is think about, what are you focusing on? So that's like tip number 2. Ask yourself, what do I spend my time focusing on? What do I spend my time thinking about or reading about? So I really want you to think about where you're focused. So many people struggle with focus, not being able to focus on things, not able to find motivation. Maybe because you're just giving it away all over the place all the time. And here's the thing, we can't have priorities with an S at the end. The actual word priority means one above all. So you can't have multiple priorities. The word priority means there's one above all. So you need to look at that. And if you've got 10 things, 20 things on your priority list, How do you even accomplish that? It's impossible to have that kind of focus on something that is just too much energy going out. So I want you to really think about refocusing on a priority. Now you can break it down into for this month, for the next 3 months, 6 months, year, but you cannot be the doer of all the things all the time. It will drive you into the ground. The third thing when you think about is money. So I have also been reflecting and talking a lot in conversation with people about money and how we spend money, what we're doing with money. Now, money is our currency, unfortunately, or fortunately, it's just the way that it is at this point. And where we put our money actually has a lot of power. So there, through the coronavirus, and we were in shelter in place, there was a lot of supporting small businesses, supporting like community businesses, because our money holds a lot of power. There's a lot of energy in money. So there's a lot of focus on supporting local businesses to help them survive, because the major corporations will survive these kind of things where small businesses won't. But your money and where you choose to put it actually has a lot of energy and a lot of power. And I really want you to think about that, is have a closer attachment to it, because everything's so digital. We don't even hold cash anymore. So money's become this abstract thing. Money's also the source of a ton of conflict in relationships, and intimate partner relationships, with parenting. I want you to think about what you're doing with money in the same way that you spend time, spend money. And the fourth thing I want you to think about is your quality of life. This is a time to stop for a moment and think about your quality of life, and to think about, what is all the hustle and bustle really about? What is it moving you towards? And what is your quality of life? Um, the heaviness can be a moment to pause. And I know that all of us, and previous to coronavirus, it was just this never ending hustle of movement and doing things and doing things and doing things. And for me, having to work from home and not being social, not getting out, has really made me pause about the quality of life and the quality of my relationships, and who I'm associating with, and are those meaningful connections to me. I really want you to take stock of that and evaluate what the quality of life is. And if you don't feel like you're at the quality of life that you want, then what are you going to do to get there? It doesn't have to be done overnight, but it can be small steps that move in that direction for you. These are ways to manage the heaviness of what's happening, is to take a moment to pause, to think, and readjust and realign. When we try to use the old way we used to be in the new world that we're in, that's going to cause a lot of internal conflict. It's going to rub up against you, and it's not going to feel great. And so this is a time to realign our lives a little bit, maybe let go of things that we need to let go of, add some things that add value to our lives, like maybe time, and get realigned instead of being part of the hustle and bustle. This is a time to take a pause and to really think what you want your life to look like, because I think this is a great opportunity to be doing those kind of things. So I hope you found today helpful. I encourage you to write this down. Again, if you watch me, that I'm a big fan of journaling. So grab a journal, write these things down. That would be great. Take a pause, please. Take a pause and do some reflection, because you deserve it. You deserve to have a fantastic life, a life of quality and love and connection. And we are here for more than just working all the time or to be busy all the time. So I encourage you to spend some time reflecting on how you can take a little bit of a pivot and maybe realign your life.